All right, I'm going to be completely honest here. I've had more fun watching the Syracuse Mets than this team. We'll get into that later. I'm going to start calling them the YMCA. Young Mets could never ant kill. The last two letters are hyphen. Episode 15 of the Mets Weekly Podcast. Very fitting number because most of this lineup does is look at strike three when it matters. He's going for the heart today. 60 minutes of brutal honesty begins now. Y'all know the drill. Subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel for content throughout the week, videos, live streams, shorts, and this very podcast every Monday. Follow us on Twitter, TikTok. All of our individual links are in the description. So, the Mets have just finished up a sweep of the Oakland A's. A lot happened. There was some rats. There was some sewage leaks, some possums. I don't even know how to describe that. And then they're also coming off of a series win against the Padres.
It's positivity. We just beat one of the best teams in baseball, 2 out of 3. We scored runs. We actually got hits. Should have swept them. Josh Hader was trying to hand us the game in the ninth inning, but 2 out of 3 is not bad. Birthday, Brandon Nimmo, 4 hits on my birthday. Gotta love that. Bunch of RBIs. And he's making web gems. And then a sweep of the A's. Yeah, it's ugly, but you know what? This team just doesn't want to win pretty. They don't like it. They just, they're going to grind your ass and find a way to win.
Yes, I wish they could have scored 5 runs multiple times against the Padres in October, but you know what? You take the wins when you can get them. As far as Oakland started off well, it ended kind of tight. As long as you win the games, that's what matters. We'll get into the nitty gritty as we move along as far as how we can make these wins a little more comfortable. Because there definitely are, even though they won the games, there are some things that definitely could be improved upon, and just a lot of things happening. Some call-ups, some send-downs. So it's definitely going to be an interesting episode.
Yeah, I've again, like I said, I was having a lot more fun time watching the Syracuse Mets, and now they just got even worse. And we'll get into that. The roster got even worse. So no championship in AAA this year, possibly, because their best hitter just got called up. So even though this team is winning, there still is quite a lot of uncertainty to talk about. And if you don't like negative Nancy's and prefer to live in a world of candy-flavored seahorses crapping out disposable glitter, I recommend moving to the next segment of the podcast. From the outside, the Mets offense has not been good. As we stand right now, the team ranks 28th in batting average, 21st in OPS, 15th in weighted runs created plus, 23rd in home runs, and 16th in runs per game. And of course, my favorite hypothetical to use, you take Pete Alonso out of the lineup, they are 29th in home runs. There is so much to unpack. I actually went on live after one of the Padres games talking about a lot of the flaws with the offense. And I talked to a lot of viewers. We were talking about a lot of things with the lineup. So, I'm going to try to keep it as limited, but you know how I always go on my rants anyway.
I want to throw one question. Do you know where they rank in on-base percentage?
Eighth-ish, I think.
Okay, yeah. There. So, all right. So they're, we say 21 in batting average?
28th.
20th. Okay, so there you go. So that's the tough thing about the New York Mets offense is that it's not necessarily that they aren't getting on base, because they are. They have a bunch of guys, high OBP, which we know that's what they want from this team. That's the kind of team they assembled. But the problem is that when you have a bunch of guys who are just, like I've said for a while now, but I just call them station to station. A lot of one-base guys. It's just tough to go, one base at a time.
Pass the baton.
Exactly. And then to expect multiple runs at a time, it just doesn't happen. Like we've talked about a lot, Pete Alonso's had to really unfairly carry this team, and it feels like it's getting worse and worse. We've known it's been a problem. Definitely was not addressed. Signing Tommy Pham as your only new offensive addition is not going to make life easier for Pete Alonso as far as power is concerned. You have Marte a little bit, Lindor every now and then, but on that, Alonso's the guy doing most of the heavy lifting. Cannon, Pham, they can sneak one out. Other than that, you're not getting basically any home runs from just about anybody else on the entire team. So what you see is just a lot of one-dimensional players. And I think a guy that stands out the most to me, and I don't really want to pick on somebody, but I think he's just an example of what this team is is Daniel Vogelbach. You look at a guy like Daniel Vogelbach's numbers and you say, okay, 387 on base percentage. That's good on base percentage. But then when you look at the OPS at 604, it's like, okay, but what is it really bringing you? Vogelbach, we talk about one-dimensional players. He's one of the most one-dimensional players you could find. I mean, he's literally at this point only drawing walks. That's all he's doing. He's getting one base. He could only face right-handers. And then if he gets on lane a game, they have to take him out to pinch run. He can't play the field. So it's like if he's a guy who pinch hits just to draw a walk, it's like I already have Guillorme. Why do I need Vogelbach? You know what I mean? Like he feels like in a vacuum, he's an okay player. Like the fact that he could get on base, has a great eye, whatever. But when you have a bunch of guys like that already, you have your Nimos, you have your Guillormes, you have your Cannas, just all these guys, high OBP, one base at a time, it just becomes so redundant. And then that's why you see these problems of like, okay, the Mets got on a bunch of times, but they left a ton of guys on base, not doing well with risk. I mean, if you have all these guys the game against Oakland, they scored 17 runs but had 17 walks to go along with it. I mean, they have, I think, 2 innings where they scored 6 runs and only 1 hit apiece in those innings. So, that's the one offensive explosion they've had all year, and it was mostly because of just how bad Oakland was walking everybody. I understand what they want. Again, in a vacuum, these are okay players, Guillorme and all these guys. But when you have all of them together, it just makes it hard to have that sustainable, high productive offense. So, that's why we've been saying for a long time, they need a change. They need something different, something new, someone that has a very different play style just so we could balance out all these guys and you just lead to a much more successful offense.
Yeah, I think I'll get into Daniel Vogelbach a lot more, but I think I'm tired of this guy. I think I've had enough. Everything that he was good for so far, he has not really been doing at all whatsoever. And to tell you the truth, we talk about him being so one-dimensional, he's become even more limited to actually be successful on this team. And it's kind of weird because there is a lot of dimensions to him. He is very wide. Okay. Sorry. For those of you who are sensitive to obesity jokes, I apologize.
It's the same team Billy Epler likes, that he only stat that he does look at. He doesn't look at OPS. He just likes his OBP guys. That's the type of guys he wants. Buck has been unwilling to add a certain guy, which, he's been playing once a week, which he should be just playing every day at this point because a certain other person is not even giving his value that he's supposed to be. We'll get to that maybe potentially later. And we'll see with this other generational talent coming up tomorrow. But at this point, maybe that can give me some youth. They're winning. Yes, are they fluky? Are they the Minnesota Vikings of the MLB where they're just winning by 1 run? Don't look at the run differential, but they're winning. Yes, the offense is always going to be the problem. It's early. They're going to actually put the kids in. 1, because of an injury. 2, they actually had the balls to do it. We'll get to them later. Maybe that, again, getting those 2 guys consistent ABs in this lineup, maybe can change at least the bottom half. But, again, you know what you're going to get from the number 1, 2, 3, and 4 spot. And, McNeil hasn't been great, but normally what you're getting, hopefully with the youth coming in on that bottom of the lineup, maybe can change somewhat. But, again, now also you have to have the conversation, is Buck going to allow the kids to maybe change that bottom half?
Simply put it, you can't play baseball like this. You can't play 2023 baseball like this whatsoever. Every single piece of production goes completely out the window. The shift, being banned, you have to hit home runs. You just have to hit home runs. There are so many guys on this team that are so obsolete. I'll make my jokes about, McNeil not having any power. In terms of McNeil, this guy should be batting 8th. That's literally how baseball is now. You need power in this game. You need guys at the top who are your table setters and table setters at the bottom as well. It just can't happen. You need power protection. End of story. This whole station to station, it's ridiculous. Coming into this era of baseball, 3-1, you see something down the middle, swing at the fucking ball. It's basically just waiting for Pete Alonso to bail us out, and then around him, it's just guys back-to-back walks, double play. Like that's all I'm really seeing right now. Welcome to 2023 baseball. You need guys who hit homers. You need guys who pull fly balls. This whole put the ball in play and something great will happen. It's done. It's gone. Frank, I know you love it, but it's gone. And I tried to warn you guys once this announcement came out about the shift being banned. You're going to hate being a Mets fan. you're really going to hate being a Mets fan, because that's pretty much all they do. It's based on error offensive placement. Like, that's literally most of what their offense was. You need to hit home runs in this era of baseball. And if they don't change their ways, this is going to be a massive problem. And I talked about this a lot on stream. You just can't play baseball like this. It's just, it just can't happen. Pete Alonso's not going to be there every goddamn time to hit the ball over the wall. He's red hot right now. He has been fantastic. Just like I like to say, you take him out of the lineup, he gets hurt, something, God forbid, knock on wood, whatever you are, if you're superstitious. They're nothing without him. They are absolutely nothing with him. And I understand Lindor can do the heavy lifting, and, you know, he can do some heavy lifting as well. But as for prolific power, Pete Alonso's this whole entire team. Daniel Vogelbach, swing the bat. Swing the goddamn bat. If I have to see this guy lift his arms staring at a pitch that's in the strike zone one more goddamn time, I am going to send him to Burger King, where he loves, and lock him there. The Mets have an approach that is built for 1982. It is 2023. There is so much dead weight on this team that if they're not put in the perfect positioning, and, you know, I could go off on McNeil, he doesn't hit any homers, but he's the type of hitter I need at the end of my lineup, because the noodle's got to go at the end. It just has to happen. Canna, even though he's showing some sort of life this week, I would love for this lineup to be so good that he bats ninth. Guillorme's fucking useless at this point with the shift gone. At the end of the day, if you want to look at it as a whole, this top four, death row right afterwards. That's it.
I mean, the only problem is that, again, like we've talked about so much, but the Mets struggles against left-handed pitching, and, you know, a guy like Vogelbach, who's brought in to be a DH, when you face a lefty, Mark Hanna or Tommy Pham is the guy batting after Pete Alonso. It's just like, that's not going to get it done. And I know Darren Ruff was supposed to be that guy since they got for the trade deadline last year, and it wasn't a rental, all this other stuff. Obviously, it ended up not working. They're not going to call up Mark Vientos, I don't think. So, again, it's like, we could talk about the prospects later, but like you talked about them changing their ways. Unfortunately, like, a lot of these guys are who they are. Like, Guillorme isn't going to start hitting home runs. You know, a lot of these other guys, McNeil's not going to start just hitting home runs all of a sudden. Mark Hanna, you know, Vogelbach, these guys are just, like, they are what they are. So if the only way the Mets could actually change it is to make moves, like trade some pieces. Like, because again, Vogelbach's not an entirely bad player, or Guillorme's not an entirely bad player, but you have so many of them, you have this surplus. Trade him to a young hitter who has some power, who maybe needs a little bit of polishing, but at least he'll just be a better overall fit on your team.
It's not even really much to do with the players, and it's more of just basically the hitting approach. And I can give you so many examples of ex-Mets who have left and who have actually used the approach that is adapted to the current stage of baseball, and they actually have had more success. JD Davis looks fantastic. He's actually pulling the goddamn ball. Michael Conforto, fuck it, let's hit homers. That's all he cares about. He's hurt right now, which is sad. There's some guys that have left the Mets who you just cannot, like, you have to pull the ball now. You just have to pull the ball. The Mets were able to get away with this with the shift intact. And it's just not going to happen now. It really is just not going to happen. The best way is to hit homers. And I understand it sounds weird. It's more productive to strike out than to hit a ground ball now. That's how this era of baseball is. And it's going to sound weird. And like I said, it is going to sound weird. And it's going to look weird when you get rid of the shift. And I tried to warn y'all about this. But that's just how baseball is now. Now, in better news, but it's still frustrating on some accounts, but it's not frustrating as much because one of them got called up. The big three in AAA Syracuse, they have been dominating so far in AAA this season. Number 2 overall prospect, Brett Baty, but he was slashing 400, 500, 886 with a 240 weighted runs created plus, 5 home runs and 7 extra base hits in 42 plate appearances. Mets number 6th overall prospect, Ronnie Mauricio, is slashing 380, 436, 880 with a 222 weighted runs created plus with 6 homers and 12 extra base hits in 55 plate appearances. And the Mets' number 8 overall prospect, Mark Vientos, is slashing 283, 365, 565 with a 133 WRC plus, 5 homers, and 5 extra base hits in 52 plate appearances. All 3 of these prospects are currently sitting in the top 15% in average exit velocity and in the top 20% in hard hit rate among all qualified AAA hitters. Now, Brett Baty was not in the Syracuse lineup today, and that is because he is getting called up to the big leagues and will be with the team today for the game against the Dodgers.
It's the right decision. This kid needs to be up here. I mean, Eduardo Escobar, great human being. The dude is not. He's not. He's just cooked. He's crispy bacon. But he's not even crispy bacon. He's turkey bacon. He's the type of bacon that no one likes. But you know what? It's better than it's not. Everyone says, like, oh, it's better than regular bacon. It's healthier. It's not. Like, he's just turkey bacon. Brett Baty is actual bitch, you went on a 40-minute rant. Shut your damn mouth. Put your damn hand
but
down.
Mine was actually construction.
No,
You're just
it's all about
bacon.
No, bacon.
Bacon's
we
cool.
bacon.
It's food.
I was surprised they actually had the balls to call him up. But hey, they're playing the Dodgers. And you know what? It would have been funny if they didn't call him up and then James Outman and Miguel Vargas just went absolutely nuts against him. And part of me would have loved to see that, to see the Dodgers kid just kick their ass and be like, hey, look, put your kids in your major league lineup. Look what happens. But again, good to see Brett in. We'll see how much playing time. Because again, just because he's on the roster doesn't mean he gets to play. Because with our manager, who knows? You know, and we're facing Clayton Kershaw in game 2. So you know he's not playing against Kershaw. Cinderpork is pitching on Wednesday, so maybe he'll get it. Maybe he'll be in the lineup against righties, but who knows? But knowing Buck, it'll be Eduardo Escobar all 3 games, and then he plays against the Giants. One of the games against the Giants, not all, just one, because Buck is just so hell bent on not letting a guy under the age of 30 in the lineup consistently. But again, it needed to be done. He needed to shake up the bottom of that lineup because it's just death row 6 through 9. There's like no production, and you need something. You can't be like Pete carrying this team and then everybody else is just like, oh, I'm here. I'm going to go for 4 and just not be productive. Brett can he shouldn't be seen as the savior, can bring some production to that bottom half of the lineup that is desperately needed. Probably the next one up is going to be Vientos. He's the next one up, but again, we'll see what injury could cause that, and Mauricio needs to change a position because I was seeing, again, it makes sense. Get him in a different position because you need to keep, if he's going to be a part of this team, if we're not trading him, and let's say, they're going to keep him, they're going to hoard the prospects, stop playing him at shortstop. Either put him at second, put him in left, put him in right, give him another position, give him another glove. Stop playing him at shortstop. Because if they keep playing him at shortstop, they see him as a trade chip. Because you're not playing here, you're not playing shortstop with Mets. So if they continue to just next month or 2 and he's still playing shortstop, that tells me they value him as a trade chip and he's going to be the big piece moved if they go out and if they want to go out, again, keyword being want. We all know Billy Epler doesn't have the trigger finger that other GMs have. But if Ronnie Mauricio is valued to this team, in the next week or 2, he needs to find a new position. If not, that's telling me that they value him more as a trade asset more than a guy that's actually going to be a pillar of this team.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've been saying all along. I mean, either use them or lose them. If they're going to be a part of your team, call them up, give them a chance because, like we said, it's not happening right now. It's the same team as last year. Too many of the same guys. But if they're not going to make an impact for your team, then trade them for other things you need, like more versatile players, like true fourth outfielders that could play center field when Brandon Nimmo gets injured diving all the time. You're going to need someone to play center field that isn't Tommy Pham. Get more arms, starting pitchers so that Jose Budo is not making starts every 5 days. You could just get more value from all these different young prospects if they're not going to be big-time contributors for you. Obviously, the Brett Baty thing needs to happen. I mean, we talked about it already for a couple weeks now. Escobar has not gotten any better, still seeing a lot of the same problems, not giving productive at-bats. And like we've said before, once you reach that age, you're on the decline. I mean, Escobar is not going to get better. His best years are behind him. Meanwhile, Baty, there is potential. There is more of a ceiling. There's room for improvement. So you always should lean that way. You should always go to the guy that has a higher upside because if you're not going to make those external changes, something internal, you got to go to your guys that have the most potential. So Brett Baty is kind of similar to Alvarez. With him already getting called up last year anyway, you already started that clock. So it's not like you're trying to, is he ready for Major League pitching? too late. I mean, you already called him up. He already, hit his home runs against the Braves and what have you, and you started to get going. Then he got hurt, all that. But since you already did it, you might as well just have him play again. Like we said, Escobar, it's gotten to the point where you can't do much worse. I mean, when your WRC plus is negative, you just got to do something. You know what I mean? And I'm not a big WRC plus guy, but even I know once it gets to that level, something has to change. So I really hope that Brett Baty could be a bit of a spark plug. Hopefully could bring a little bit of power, extra base hits and things like that. Just kind of get something going, because I have to say, I understand they like this approach, but it's not fun to watch. I mean, just like these walks and, just station to station, one base at a time, it's just not very compelling. It's not very exciting. So if somebody could come into this lineup and really just change things up a little bit to get it much more exciting, like Walt Frazier always says, good play is contagious. So, you just want to see something like that happen. And I'm looking forward to it. But as far as Vientos, I think he may be here sooner than later because, unfortunately, Brett Baty, left-handed hitter. So I don't necessarily think he's going to solve their whole, against lefties problem. And it wouldn't surprise me if Buck Showalter platoons him in Escobar, where Baty doesn't even face the lefties. So if you solve that problem against left-handed pitching, I feel like Vientos is going to end up being up here anyway. So who knows, what those other roster moves will be. I'm with Andrew again. It seems like Tim LeCastro has more value than Daniel Vogelback. I mean, think about it. If Vogelback gets on base late in the game, he's coming out for Tim LeCastro. And LeCastro's stealing bases, and he's going to be the guy scoring the run. So it's just – and he actually plays some outfield positions and things like that. So it's just crazy. But that's probably the move they have to make. And then after that, we'll see what happens. Again, it could be like injury or something that would lead to Vientos being here. And I'm totally with Andrew with Mauricio. I mean, he's not going to be playing shortstop. He has a lot of value as a trade chip. And again, the Mets there's some holes that needs to be addressed. So either if he's going to be on your team, another position, or trade. I mean, I'm in 100% agreement with that. Because again, like, you're not going to trade Lindor. Like, he's going to be here for 9 more years or whatever. So you might as well just have Mauricio play somewhere else so he could have some value for you.
I mean, Lindor was already traded by the fan base like 2 years ago already. Yes. So
I think he was even released too. Not even just traded, also released.
He was DFA'd. He was released. I'm pretty sure he was stabbed a few times. It's crazy. So, I mean, religiously, I've been pretty much watching a lot of Syracuse, obviously. Call every single one of these guys up right now. Like, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm so desperate for power in this lineup. Give me them right now. Brett Baty won the job at third base, as far as I'm concerned, in spring training. He's the third baseman. He has been our third baseman for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks. He won the job. He 100% won the job, and he should have been on the opening day roster. Ronnie Mauricio looks like a completely different player right now. I know we all talk about this, a raw talent, still has a lot of things to work out, but this guy, when I say he looks like a completely different player, oh my God. Wow. I am so impressed by Ronnie Mauricio so far. He pulls fly balls, which I really like. It's just something that in this era of baseball, you can definitely use. I'm not sure how I like him as a switch hitter, but it's whatever. He's not chasing at all. He is spitting on pitches like Juan Soto this year, and he's destroying the baseball like Yordan Alvarez. Like, that's how amazing he has been in AAA. As for Vientos, I don't know. I can't really tell, but he's also pulling the ball a lot. He's hitting the ball in the air. I mean, the launch angle issues, they seem to be all gone. We all talk about how high of a ceiling Ronnie Mauricio has. He's close to reaching it. Like, that's how good he looks so far. And I know I'm talking about him in mid-April, and, possibly he'll slow down, but he does not look like he belongs in AAA. I already really talked about this, and I put it out on Twitter. I put out a poll about, a possible lineup of, with the kids in it. This is obviously pre-trade deadline before they do everything, but Nimmo and Marte, Lindor, Alonso. You have Alvarez protecting Alonso at number 5. 6 is Baty. 7 is Vientos. 8th is McNeil, and then 9th is Canna. Now, I understand the put him in left field thing for Ronnie Mauricio, but they haven't done that yet, so I'm not going to full-on bank on it yet. So that's the type of lineup that I think the Mets really need to do, and I've talked about it where I want this lineup to be as good and as power deep where Canna bats 9. And that's what I want to see before the trade deadline. And I hope that they do see that. Bringing up Brett Baty, that's the first step. They said that they want their prospects to pan out for the power. And what they've done in AAA, they are destroying the base. They have been the anti-Mets. That's how incredible they have been in Syracuse so far. And hopefully we don't get our hitting coaches getting in their head and saying, hit the ball 70 miles an hour and go the opposite field. Pull the goddamn ball, hit dingers. End of story. So in terms of consistency, volume, and health in the Mets rotation, there really has not been much so far. But there has been one arm that has been doing that being Tylor Megill. Through his first 3 starts, Megill has posted 16 innings pitched, 12 hits, 4 earned runs, 7 walks, and 13 strikeouts. Megill was originally supposed to be the opening day starter in AAA Syracuse, but the injury to Justin Verlander inserted him into the starting rotation in the majors. Last year, Megill started on opening day and dominated the Nationals, but did hit quite the tailspin with multiple IL stints. So the question here is, how much can you trust Tylor Megill? Now, before I start this, I'm going to go through the checklist, all right? He's definitely the next Jacob deGrom because he's always hurt. He gets off to a great start and he gets barreled, even though I have no idea what a barrel really is. His Sierra is too high, even though I don't know what Sierra is either, and it's been outdated for almost 2 years now. Remember that one time he gave up that insert exaggeration here, insert useless narrative with no foundation, and insert loose comparison to David Peterson here. So there you go, viewers. I just saved you 15 minutes of useless, overused jokes that have been driven so far into the ground that the entire residency of Beijing said, shut the fuck up. Let's have a normal conversation of actual analysis. Frank, I'll start with you. How much do you trust Tylor Megill?
Well, you don't have a choice. He's going to be here. He's going to be in the rotation. I mean, between the one old guy who's hurt, the other old guy who's hurt, we'll get to. Quintana, you don't know if you're going to see him. Carrasco, I have no faith in him. So by default, Megill has to be in the rotation. So, but he's given reasons to be, to give trust in him because, like we know, we got to a good start last year. Injuries, inconsistencies, those things happen. So I always say to Megill, it's a matter of staying healthy. I think if he stays healthy, you can get some production, you can get quality starts out of him. And again, it's like with the status of Quintana, will this rotation ever be 100%? Probably not. But I will say that in the short sample size, if I had to make a roster decision, I had to cut a guy between Megill and Carrasco, it's like I said earlier, I got to be consistent. Megill has the higher upside. Megill has a lot more potential than Carlos Carrasco has. Carrasco has gotten to that age where he's only getting worse. And you see it, 4th inning, 5th inning, gassed, low velocity in the fastball, can't put hitters away, can't strike guys out, giving up home runs constantly. So for me with Megill, at least this is a guy that has some potential. He's young. He can still improve. So he's a guy that I definitely have more faith in than Carlos Carrasco. I think he's going to be a guy that is really going to have to step up big for the Mets because they've already had how many injuries in the first month of the season? You know there's going to be more. So I really just hope that he can stay healthy. He's not one of those injured guys because, again, Jose Budo's already making starts.
I mean, trust in the Mets is not much. But, again, he's pitched well. But, again, like you said, he did this last year. He had a really good start, and then the injury bug hits him. He is what he is. Again, he can give you 5 or 6 innings. He's going to look good at starts. He's going to look bad at starts. Again, he's what expected. He's a 4. On a good team, he's a 4 or 5. On this team, he has to be the number 2 at this point because Max Scherzer's now got that. Obviously, Quintana's already dead. Verlander's already dead. So he's the number 2. Again, he's a nice pitcher. He's not going to be this top of the rotation guy. He's a guy you put in the middle of the rotation with another group of nice young arms.
I thought we went through this checklist already. I thought we already did it.
I didn't say I'm a jug. Again, can you trust him? No, because you've seen this before. He's had a good start. We'll see. He is what he is. Do I trust him now? Like you said, like Frank said, I trust him more than Carrasco. Obviously, we trust him more than Jose Quintana and trust him more than David Peterson. But again, that's the thin line where you have to trust him because he's your only option. Where, Dylan Bundy's giving up 10 runs with 14 hits allowed today or whatever the hell he had. in his Syracuse debut. He's the next one up in the rotation if Tylor Megill. So you have to trust Tylor Megill because there's no other option. He does have upside. Again, like Frank said, he still has some upside to fulfill. I don't believe it's higher than some, but again, do I trust him? I have to. Because again, he's the only option because this team now for some reason cannot develop any starting pitching prospects. They're all they're a hitting factory now. They can't develop any other arms. So I have to trust Tylor Megill because there is no other options.
I've gotten some of what the Tylor Megill I've wanted, but I still
Still a little too many walks. I will say
it's not
more
really
than
the
usual.
walks. It's just there's a few things I just don't like. Fastball command's a little iffy, and he's got command of his slider, but it just does not have the same shape it had last year. I'd love to see him throw a cutter again. For some reason, I'd love to see him develop some kind of Senga cutter. That'd be so cool, but I don't really feel good about the Dodgers. I'd love to see him at one point sitting at 97 and 98, but that's a long way down. I think he needs to, build the conditioning, in his arm and actually, pitch actual innings. And speaking of, his first start that he had 91 pitches, the next start 88 pitches, the next start 81 pitches. Buck Showalter, let this guy throw, please. I understand he's got the injury concerns, but let the guy throw. Let him get some innings on his arm so you can see that he can actually handle it. I don't want to see this guy actually in the rotation all year, and at the end of the year, he has 110 innings. Let the guy pitch. Please let the guy pitch. What are you shaking your head at? Let the guy pitch. He's been 5 and fly because he doesn't let the guy pitch. That's why. Let him get to his 100 pitches. Please do. Okay? They should not have a longer leash on the veterans than the actual young guys who don't have as much mileage on their arm. If he's pitching well, let him continue to go. I understand injuries are concerning, but Tylor Megill needs this to stay healthy. He needs more innings where he can actually take that capacity of workload. It's definitely going to be a question 3 years down the line. Are you okay with him moving into maybe the 2 spot if he does develop here? Because again, what do you got right now? Remember, Verlander, Scherzer, they're not going to be here forever. Quintana, who knows if he even pitches an inning for the Mets ever. Senga's 30. I mean, he'll be here for a while, but he's 30. I mean,
he could opt out.
He could opt out too. So it's not like a lot of these pitchers are here. Tylor Megill's under control, and if he does start to pitch well, how much could they actually push it? Could he turn into a frontline starter? End of the day, he's pitched well so far, but there's still some stuff that I got to see. He's still got a long way to go until he's the Cy Young Award winner at the end of the year. Now, speaking of the rotation, Max Scherzer's start yesterday has been pushed back 3 days due to some lingering soreness from his last start, per Buck Showalter. Scherzer said he dealt with a similar situation in 2019 and said the following: "I respect it. I know what it is, and I know that if you give it a little rest, get it out of your system, it goes away." The Mets recalled their number 15 overall prospect, Jose Budo, who pitched in Scherzer's spot yesterday, as Max is now lined up to start the 3rd game of the Dodgers series against former Met Noah Syndergaard.
It's April for a 38-year-old, and yes, he has not looked himself, and that is definitely a concern. And Gary brought this up in yesterday's game, where it was like, could this be, he could have pitched against Oakland. Why not push him back to actually face a team that, instead of having Jose Budo against the Dodgers, have Max Scherzer face it. Push him back, have him face the Dodgers, have Budo face the A's. I think Gary and Ron were talking about that during yesterday's game. But again, this is the problem when you have your aces being a combined total of 83 million years old. Their bodies aren't as their, peak form anymore. They're going to have the lingering, nagging injuries. And I think somebody asked Scherzer for a buck. I forgot which one of the two said, was this still the oblique on that side? Because when you heard the side, Scherzer with the oblique last year. And Max said, no, Buck. I think it was Buck that was like, no, it wasn't. He was pointing. He went and pointed at the guy's body part. Like, no, it's this part. The oblique is here. But again, with Max and with pitchers today, they're fragile. They're made of glass. So, again, my boo-boo hurt. All right, push you back a day. I'd rather this than, oh, I'm going on the IL for 2 weeks. I would prefer that just, hey, push him back a couple days, give him the extra couple days rest, have him face the Dodgers, a team that, he has better, again, it's a better pick. It's a better matchup for him than having to face, put spot star Budo in LA. So, obviously, it's a concern. We know with these guys that they're, closer to retirement than they are in their prime. So, they're going to keep happening. And when Verlander gets healthy, he's going to have this. Oh, he's going to have a blister. He's going to have some kind of these little nagging things. I don't take too much big, like, oh my God. Like with Verlander, okay, it's an IL stint. If it's just simple, hey, they're pushing him back a couple days, cool. If he gets pushed back again, I think that's when I'm going to start being like, okay, put him on the IL at this point. If he's getting pushed back again, the fact that it's like, hey, they're just going to push him back and he's still going to make a start, I'm not as going to be crazy because, again, these guys, they're dinosaurs. They're going to get hurt. So, again, I'm not losing my mind like most, but again, he's good. He's not going on the IL. He's going to make a start. If he gets pushed back again, I think that's when maybe we start to hit a little bit of the panic button where, like, okay, this is now a little bit more of a concern thing. Again, I'm not as, it's obviously it's a concern, but again, looks like he's going to stay in the rotation and not miss any time. Again, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt of, hey, they're trying to play it early because it is April, not try to kill these guys because, again, they do have a whole 6 months ahead of them to play baseball as well. So, again, we'll see if he gets pushed back again. I think that's when you'll get a little more of a rageful answer.
That's what I was going to get at. I mean, how many times have we had this conversation about Max Scherzer and his side? What is with this guy's sides? I mean, was he doing something different with golf now with his golf swing? So this wouldn't happen. I mean, this guy has just been oblique after oblique, and now the side is tight again. How do we know that this old man's oblique isn't going to go out again? Like, this is what we've talked about. We knew the injury risk. We knew it. I mean, how could you not? If you're any organization and you're signing 40-year-old player after 40-year-old player, you have to know that injury risk comes with it. Verlander, we haven't seen him yet. Scherzer already has to start delayed. Again, we're in the first month of the season. First month. They don't even have the wear and tear on their arms yet of the season, any mileage. And these guys already have backs and sides. And, when you're an old person, this happens. So the knee's going to go next. You probably have a hip in there somewhere. I know. Like, these are the things that happen throughout the course of the season once you get up there in age. So it just doesn't surprise me anymore. I'm like, oh, Scherzer's side again. Like, what's new? I'm so tired of it. Like, him and Verlander are getting paid so much. I mean, for these guys to constantly have something going on, how could you trust them? How do you have faith that Max Scherzer is going to get through the whole year and Verlander get through the whole year without these IL stints? You don't. And it's just like the way that you have to know there's injuries when you sign 40-year-old guys. But the fact that they sign them and don't get any depth behind it is what drives me nuts. Jose Budo, like I said, is already making starts in April. He got away with it because he faced the Oakland Athletics. You would have had a tougher time facing a minor league team than facing these Oakland Athletics right now because that is how little they care about their organization. So I can't be like, oh, well, Budo got through. He only gave up, 1 run, 2 runs. Wow, oh my gosh. And he had to battle through it. Every inning, you're biting your nails because he's putting multiple guys on. So it bothers me so much that they've had these depth problems in rotation for a few years now, and they just refuse to address it. They just keep signing 40-year-old guys saying, oh, we're going to be okay. And then they get hurt, and they have no other options. So I'm just tired of it. I mean, I hope Scherzer, it's not anything serious, but who knows? Next time it'll be something else. It just happens when he gets to that age. It's unfortunate, but, this is the risk that they took signing these older players.
Andrew, if I get this correctly, let me know.
Fire.
We are 2 weeks into the season.
Yes.
We've had injury concerns with Verlander and Scherzer, and we've had 0 injury concerns in Texas with Jacob deGrom.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Huh. That's very interesting. What really makes me nervous, and maybe it's just the way that Buck Showalter phrases things, is lingering soreness. Lingering. That's not something that I want to hear in April. And maybe that's something that, they caught it early. It's fine. But I think that when you've gotten to this certain age, these guys are a combined 78 years old, right? At the top of this rotation. And you'll always have these little scratch updates of, they're sore, push back at this, that. I feel like we're 2 weeks into the season. We've already have so many injury concerns. It's going to become a drinking game. Like, we're just going to never see a back-to-back day where Scherzer and Verlander pitch. It feels like neither of them are going to be healthy at the same time. But maybe they will be. will be fine. It's just the fact that Max does not look like Max so far. I wouldn't say he's starting to show his age, but he doesn't look right. He doesn't look like Max Scherzer. We're having this concern in April. That's not amazing. How anemic this offense has looked without Pete Alonso doing everything, with how many injuries they've gone through. I don't know how long they're going to survive this. And it's really, you can't play the Oakland A's every day. But the Dodgers, the Padres, the Braves, the teams that we have to beat throughout this season, or even in the postseason, I really don't think this is going to end well at the pace that it's going. I know he said he had a similar situation in 2019, but that was 4 years ago. 4 years ago, he was 34. 34 and 38, those are two different ages. So I'm not holding my breath when I say, oh, Scherzer dealt with this before. He's fine. He'll be fine. It's an accelerated pace right now where they're old. They're older. I've already said it would have been a dream to have 300 innings combined from Verlander and Scherzer, and the amount of pitching injuries has just been nuts. So one thing I can say about the Mets this season so far is that John Heyman has been pretty silent, and we all know he'd wake up eventually. Per the New York Post, a source close to him linked that the Mets and the Yankees as potential suitors for Matt Chapman in free agency. Chapman is off to a roaring start to start off 2023, leading the American League in batting average, on base percentage, slugging percentage, and leading the entire League of Baseball in weighted runs created plus. Chapman will test the free agent market after this season at age 30, represented by the one and only high roller villain himself, Scott Boras. This is kind of interesting because it is a story that came out this week. We've been talking about Escobar versus Baty, the third base position.
I mean, our tagline is brutal honesty, and if I'm brutally honest, I could give a rat's ass about free agency stuff right now. I get Heyman's bored, and, again, he's Boris's pigeon, so, Heyman hasn't really been able to say anything, so you know what, let's just stir the pot today, and hey, Matt Chapman linked with the Mets and the Yankees. Oh, yeah, both teams could probably, barring Baty, just being Brett Baty, both teams could look for a legitimate third baseman. That could be an option, but again, right now, he would fit. I mean, he's a great player. He'd fit. Maybe you could have gotten, I don't know, somebody's going to be yelling about him for 3 years. I think he would be a good fit, but he's not an Epler guy. It's too many homers. He's great, one of the best defensive third basemen, which, again, you could have that benefit or just make Brett the left-handed DH. But we all know Billy Epler. If you hit more than 21 home runs, he doesn't want you. So he's not going to be a Met. But, again, it would be an interesting fit. He would, kind of be a light version of Carlos Correa with a little more power, to be honest. But again, we've seen that Epler doesn't like these guys who hit the ball out of the ballpark. But again, I'm not looking forward to free agency yet. And as much as I might love that season and love to, hypothetical, signings and that. When I saw it, I'm like, okay, Boris needs something to talk about. So Heyman, put this out. So I'm going to get Mets Twitter all fired up. But again, to be brutally honest, I didn't give a shit when I saw it. I'm like, okay, cool. Heyman's doing Boris's bidding. But it would be an interesting fit. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's such a hypothetical. I mean, we've talked how long now about, the Mets linked to this guy, Mets linked to that guy. We've been talking about Matt Chapman ever since we started doing these streams way back when. And it's just like, well, we did this whole thing a couple segments ago talking about Brett Baty this, Brett Baty that. Third base, here he comes. And it's like, let's get a new third baseman. So we got to have a little bit of consistency here. And it's like, okay, well, let's see how the year plays out. I mean, if Brett does struggle, if he's not playing well, if he's not ready, then maybe, okay, we can explore it. If, again, Boris is willing to cooperate and, everything goes well, Mets could scoop him up, great. But it's like, if Brett Baty does really well, it's like, well, then where does Matt Chapman exactly fit in? And we've talked about the problem with the Mets not developing pitching. You could always make the case, okay, well, do you sign Chapman and trade Baty for a starting pitcher, like a really good starting pitcher? It's something to consider. But I think it's something they should at least consider because, like we talked about with signing Carlos Correa, it just gave the Mets so many more options. Like it made Escobar expendable. You could shift Brett to left and then you can move Canna, because those guys would be coming off the books anyway. So, I mean, it just gives you a lot more flexibility. You could DH Brett every now and then. You'll just have a lot more possibilities because right now this team, it doesn't, like we said, doesn't feel very deep, not very versatile. But you just feel that if you have more flexibility and you can move more pieces around, you can just have a more complete all-around team. So let's see what happens. I mean, I know Matt Chapman is doing really well right now. Let's see how the rest of his season goes. Let's see how the rest of Brett Baty's season goes. And then we can revisit this conversation, because right now Toronto's not going to trade him. So it's April. It's something the Mets really can't do until, November, December. I don't want to put that unfair pressure on Brett Baty. I mean, let's at least give him a chance. Let's at least, give him a run and see what happens.
Can I just get a time machine, fast forward to free agency, and just sign him right now? Can I just do that right now? I'm going to say it one more time. Just one more time. And then I'll never say it again. Mets and Blue Jays. Mets were ranked 22 overall farm system at the time. Blue Jays were 21. Gunnar Hoglund was the best piece that went back to Oakland. Top 5 prospect at the time. Sounds like the same caliber as Matt Allen. Interesting. Very, very interesting.
That's quite a narrative right there. But Matt Allen is doing an arc. He's doing his arc, so he's the next coming of Jesus. You sure you would have traded Matt Allen?
Now, why would we do that? Let me be real for a second. Matt Chapman, funny, best hitter in baseball right now throughout the first 2 weeks. Crazy. Destroying the baseball. The guy they went with, Eduardo Escobar, one of the worst qualifying hitters in baseball. It's almost like I know what I'm talking about. That's crazy. This guy hits freaking tanks, okay? May have led the league in strikeouts a few years ago. Now he loves to walk. If you walk and hit homers, you're on my team. You're a friend of mine right now, because you don't chase, and then when a pitch is there, you swing, because that's how baseball works these days. Get me him right now. Can I sign him right now? I'll take him right now. We all know how I am with prospects. I am never going to gatekeep a prospect and make them my future insert position here. I don't know what Baty's going to do at the major league level. I don't know. And I think he's going to be a fantastic player, but I don't know that yet. We talked about with Correa, I think this is the same situation. An elite defender with amazing range. He has great power. He can move. He's got a lot of tools. He's a toolsy player. A little bit older than Correa. I get it. Makes the team a lot more flexible. And you can move Brett Baty to left field and maybe decline your Canna option. But again, this is way long down the line in the future. We all know Billy Epler does not like guys who hit for power. He's going to trade Pete Alonso at the deadline. I would love it right now. You should have did it last year in the offseason, but we didn't want to trade Matt Allen, who has thrown so many no-hitters. Shoulda, woulda, coulda at this point. You got to wait until free agency. But I would 100% do this right now. So now let's get to everybody's favorite segment, Studs and Duds. One player that has played fantastic that you want to give recognition to, and one player that has been complete shit and you want to throw them off of a building. I'm going to start up with my stud, even though he did hit a batter today. No walks. He's been fantastic, replacing the irreplaceable Edwin Diaz.
It's almost like relievers are the most replaceable position.
Still hasn't been fantastic, though. Still has not been dominant. I'm still a little nervous with this guy, but David Robertson, he's been fantastic so far. It's still very early, and we all know how the guys who get Frank support, we all know how they end. But no, David Robertson's been fantastic. He has done a phenomenal job in the 9th inning. And if you don't walk batters, you're a friend of mine. You are a 100% a friend of mine, and he has not done that once, even though he did hit a batter today. That's even worse. Piece of shit. Fuck you. But no, he's been lights out.
All right, so if one of us has gone with a surprise, you know what? The chat in our comment section, here's another surprise out of nowhere stud. And it's been an accumulation, not just this week, but for his role and especially our expectation for this player, he's actually been a nice little surprise. And it's been productive. And that's Tommy Pham. He isn't god-awful. You know, I shit on this guy just like Frank about sports. This man's old. This man hates fantasy football. Don't make a trade with him. He's going to punch in your face. We thought he'd be a locker room cancer. And for his role, I'm not saying he's a great player. Again, keywords in this phrase, in his role, he has been a productive Met. And he has been productive throughout the season. hit a fat nuke yesterday. We'd like to see it. Continue to hit left-handed pitching. Yes, is this lineup great with him in it? No. But for his role so far, I'll give him, because I was very negative. He's been a productive hitter in his role. I'm not saying I want to see him more. Keep him in the role where he's continued to be successful. I'll give a nice little nod to Tommy Pham. He has succeeded my expectations. Yes, my expectations were literally at ground zero. But he has been productive, so I'll give Tommy Pham a little bit of a sunshine.
No, I am going to pick the obvious one. I mean, he's had such a phenomenal week. Pete Alonso. I mean, just we talk. We need power. Home runs. He's like, don't worry, I got you covered. I'll do all the work for you. I mean, and big home runs too. You know what I mean? Not just meaningless home runs. We talk about Pete Alonso all the time, but like against Oakland, where nobody in the first game nobody could score a run. Pete Alonso's actually hitting clutch, home runs that really decide the game. So definitely a huge week from him. Like we always say, we hope he stays hot because he's a bit streaky. He can get red hot, but he could definitely get pretty cold. So this is what they need for them to have a chance. He unfortunately needs to play at this kind of level all the time, but he's doing it right now. So I have to give credit where credit's due.
The one thing I've liked a lot from Pete is his approach against left-handed pitching. You know how the Mets, their opponents love to stack the lefties against him, and we really need Pete to be hitting left-handed pitching, and he has looked phenomenal so far this year. And I mean, I'm glad that if he starts to strike out more, I'm okay with it. Just do it. I mean, at this point, because someone's got to swing the bat on this team at this point in this era of baseball, like I've said multiple times. Let's get to the sucky people. Who is horrible?
All right, so I didn't go narrative based when I starts out because I'm going to lay the obvious answer because there would have been an obvious answer, but I'm getting my wish. Baty's coming tomorrow, so I'll let somebody else have that one. How about a guy who went 1 for 11 against the Oakland A's, and this is supposed to be the batting champion? Jeff McNeil. This dude is all he's hitting is weak ass dribblers to first base. Or now, even the strikeout numbers are coming. Like, what the hell is going on? Again, we know what Jeff, he goes, when he's cold, he's cold. We know eventually he's going to have a month where he hits like 970, and he's still going to have, at the end of the year, 300, but I don't care. You go 1 for 11 against Oakland. You're supposed to, when a Luisa Rise is hitting like 950, like, you're supposed to be better than that guy. And that guy's raging hot, and you're barely hitting your weight. So, for this week, because again, should have traded him for Luis Castillo. It's Jeff McNeil.
Thanks for stealing mine.
I'm saying, when he said that, I'm like, I'm going to steal this man right away, because I know how you are, and how it's like, I know exactly who's going with.
It hurts to do this. I would have picked McNeil as well, but Francisco Alvarez. We just talked about, here he comes. He's here to give us some offense at catcher, to give us something new. And it's just constant strikeouts. It's constant whiffs, chasing. You know what? They're just exploiting him. They're going with the same pitches over and over, and he just can't seem to lay off. Doing the same thing he did when he got called up last year. A bit too antsy at the plate, a bit too aggressive. Had a big pass ball / wild pitch late in the game. They've been stealing a lot of bases. His arm looks strong, but they're still stealing a lot of bases when he's catching. So there obviously still is more work to be done. We knew that. But it's just that I would hope that he could soon start to lay off some pitches. I don't want this to continue too much longer because, again, you don't want to really rattle the young player's confidence and things like that. So I really hope that he can just lay off some pitches, relax, and just let the game come to him because they know he's being aggressive and they just keep attacking it. So just an ugly game. I mean, just strikeout after strikeout after strikeout, not productive at bats. So unfortunately, he's the guy.
I want to jump in here. I think a Mets fan can agree with me to an extent. Every level he's gone up, he's always sucked the first month. We look at his jump from single A to double A. Obviously, we saw it last year from double A to triple A. He's always struggled. It takes him a few weeks. Yes, in those levels, he's playing every day. When he was in the lineup every day, he knew he was getting 5 games a week. He's catching. So, yes, his ABs are not looking great? No. But, again, with a 21-year-old, this is what we said. We was like, we didn't want him up. We don't want him up here for a while. Like, we wanted him to be able to stay in AAA and let him just continue to just rake. I'm not losing my shit yet about Alvarez, but again, there is somewhere like, okay, he's a 21-year-old catcher. Again, he's 21-year-old top prospect getting called up, and he's looking fastballs, and he's just swinging through them. And, give him time. he'll be back to looking like the guy. He's one, give him the consistent playing time, and stop playing him once a week, twice a week. If he's here, let him struggle and let him get through this every day. Because Tomas Nido, which we didn't say anything, he was. I guess we'll get in an honorable mention. I'll let Metsfan go first if he has one, because Tomas Nido needs to be talked about. But again, I'm not over the moon yet about giving up on Alvarez, but again, I can see why people would say it.
Yeah, every prospect's going to struggle at the beginning. It's just a fact. I mean, if you want to pace other guys who were top prospects in all of baseball, I mean, J-Rod struggled, Adley struggled, and these guys were a lot older, as compared to what Alvarez is, and he also has to learn the catching position as well. So it's a lot different. I'm also not ready to throw him off a bridge yet at all. I need about 100 to 150 plate appearances before I can actually make a judgment on what direction they go in next. And let the guy play every day at this point. And that brings me to my next point, being my dud. Tomas Nido, dear God, what the fuck happened to this guy? I'm not talking about him on offense. I know he sucks. He can't hit. This guy's defense sucks. This guy's defense has been so bad. Alvarez has played better defense than this guy. Omar Narvaez has given more production defensively on the injured list than this guy. He's calling a shit game behind there. I don't know what the fuck's going on with him. Just because McCann is gone does not mean you need to start acting like him. I hope that this stops right now, because what he's really established is one of the best defensive catchers in baseball. And if he's not, he's useless. We all know he's useless. And the fact that, that was something that was really talked about when Alvarez was called up, and they talked about, he's the QB1 behind there, and he's the calling the shots here, and he's the backup quarterback. Well, the backup quarterback is outplaying the star quarterback right now, defensively at least, because I know what the hitting upside is going to be with Francisco Alvarez. Unlimited ceiling, he's 21 years old. Unless this guy actually gets it together, because Nido looks like absolute shit back there.
And he's the guy that they went on, let's buy out his arbitration years. That's the guy they wanted to pay. And he's going to be here because they did it that exactly. Him just blatantly just dropping a third strike because somebody was running. Like, I was like, what? Again, I think it was the game on Friday night, because I didn't watch the Saturday game. It's just like a blatant, easy drop third strike and lets the guy reach. So, like, what the
Okay, so let's get into a viewer question. If you guys want to send us a question, make sure to click the link in the description, enter your name and your Mets-related question, and it could be featured on the next episode of the Mets Weekly Podcast. So this actually is a great corresponding question. It is from one of our longtime viewers, Urzra or Merlin. I don't know which one he goes by, but basically talking about, he said, should we DFA Escobar? But basically, what do they do with Escobar now that Baty is up? Like, what is his role now?
I mean, I say it's too much money, but then we're the team that has about $45 million worth of players just to play on other teams or sipping on Bacardis in the Dominican Republic. I mean, they could just cut him. It's $11 million, I believe, this year. So like 10 and change, some shit, like some close. It's plus $10+ million he's owed the rest of this season. If you DFA, let's say it's LeCastro. Well, let's just say in a hypothetical that he's the guy because, he doesn't hit, whatever. He's the guy that gets DFA'd to get Baty on the roster if it's not Jose Budo. Let's just say if they have to move a position player. Let's just play this hypothetical. LeCastro's the guy that goes. Your bench is absolutely horrific. If it's Daniel Vogelbach who gets DFA'd, Escobar does give you obviously gives you defensive value. I mean, it's not great, but it gives you more defensive value than Daniel Vogel. With Luis Guillorme is the biggest thing. Because if Baty's here and he plays every day at third base, you can't have both Escobar and Guillorme on the bench. You wouldn't think. To the point, I think Guillorme is the guy that needs to be sent. If you're not going to cut Vogelbach, let's say this is the hypothetical, and Vogelbach is still here, and they don't cut Vogelbach, I think Guillorme needs to be sent down, and Escobar takes the Guillorme role. It has to go back. Yes, he's older, but get back to what he was in Arizona. They say, hey, if we tell you playing second base, you're playing second base. We need you to play left field. Go out and play left field. You're not getting a position. You want to play? Have 9 gloves in your locker room, in your clubhouse. Because that's the only value if you're not just outright cutting them and putting another $10 million on that lighting off that pile of money or just lighting on fire. So he does have more value than Luis Guillorme. It's not by much. I guess Guillorme is a better defender, but who would I? God, if a gun to my head, who do I want hitting? Luis Guillorme or Eduardo Escobar? Like, that's the point. It's, I guess Escobar, because he can occasionally hit the ball out of the ballpark with Guillorme, unless it's against Darren O'Day. Can't do anything besides hit the ball at, right, left center, and right center, but I could see him taking Guillorme's role, but then you got Buck and his full-on love for Luis Guillorme. So, I'm going to be very intrigued to see what Billy Epler does decide to do with this roster spot. I think the obvious answer is just there. Jose Budo is going to get sent down and replaced for what's it called. But again, I would be, if it is a position player, it's going to be very telling to see who's the guy that goes down, because the guy that shouldn't and needs to get DFA'd, it is Daniel Vogelbach. I don't see it happening. So Guillorme or LeCastro, and this season, I'd rather have LeCastro on my team than Guillorme, but that's kind of the hole the Mets are in right now, and I'm very intrigued to see what Billy Epler does.
Guillorme does have one minor league option left, so I don't know. I don't want to take playing time away from Jose Peraza, though. I think that he is one of the best to ever do it, homering off of Josh Hader.
No, it would take away from Jonathan Awauz. I mean, because goddamn, he's hitting like 600 down there, I think, too. Jesus. Frank, what do you think?
If it was up to me, I would send down Tim LeCastro before I send down Luis Guillorme.
You can't send him down. You got to DFA him. He's got no minor league option.
That's fine. I don't care. I'll DFA him. I mean, he's a pinch runner at most. I mean, that's his role. I think Guillorme, with his glove and the fact that he could kind of get on base, and then like LeCastro has made starts, he gets hit by pitches. That's about all he's going to do to get on base. At least Guillorme can kind of draw walks and put the ball in play even though it's on the ground. But I still feel like Guillorme has more value than LeCastro. Escobar, he would move like inside utility role, probably bat against lefties. Maybe he could get hot at some point again, hit a couple home runs. But other than that, I think he has more value than LeCastro.
You DFA LeCastro, you have to believe if Brandon Nimmo gets injured, you're trusting Tommy Pham in center field.
Well, I mean, LeCastro played left already, and Pham played center when LeCastro started. So they've already told you that.
Pham has stole a few bases. He could be
God, listen to the quality of players we're talking about. Eduardo Escobar, Tim LeCastro, and Luis Guillorme. Like, oh.
I talked about this last week. The dead weight way to get rid of dead weight is to cut it. I would DFA Eduardo Escobar. I really would, to be honest. I don't see this guy producing at all. I really don't. One of the most important things is exit velocity of this era of baseball. I feel like I've said that so many times so far. I'm pretty sure Guillorme has a higher exit velocity than Eduardo Escobar this year. Hit the ball hard, put the ball in play. You're not doing any of that. I would just get rid of him. I really would. What's another $10 million at this point? Because I feel like it's easily lined up right now where talking about these prospects, I think Baty comes in, you get rid of Escobar. Vientos comes in, you get rid of Vogelbach. If you call Mauricio up, that's when Guillorme goes. Or they send him down to the minor leagues. I've had enough of Escobar. I've had enough. I don't think he's going to just be, it's a bench bat. He's going to be a bench bat. No bench bat, no veteran presence. I know they're not going to do it. I know 100% they're not going to do it. Guillorme's here, plays better defense at third base than Escobar, even though Escobar, I'm pretty sure, has had better defensive numbers so far, but I'm not going to talk about that inflation. We all know that maybe, any of the guys we're thinking of, maybe it's Denyi Reyes that gets sent down. Maybe it's Jose Budo. He was just here for a spot start.
Do you want to go short-handed on pitching, though? I mean, with how the rotation is right now.
That's what injuries, I mean. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, and they're not going deep into games. I mean, with this rotation right now, I mean, is anybody going more than 7? No. Everyone's going 4, 5. So you can go short in the bullpen. I think that would be – I'd rather just send down whoever it is, LeCastro, Vogelbach, Guillorme, take your pick. I would not want to go short on the arms on this current team right now. Even though the arms aren't great in the pen, you can't have another less arm.
We'll see what happens. We'll see what that roster move is. I mean, this podcast will probably be out by the time that they make that move, and we'll see what happens. If it is Escobar, we're probably going to be, talking about it somewhere else, but I think it's just time to just cut this loose. I think we've seen the capacity of Eduardo Escobar. We've seen the best of him, and the best of him is just, these short spurts of thing. And he doesn't even look like the player that was playing last year and playing like shit, or, doing his usual pop fly into the infield. He just looks like garbage. Like, he doesn't even look good. And maybe it's possible that, Brett Baty emergence is getting into his head, but I'm going to tell you right now, I really don't give a shit. It's time to cut the dead weight. And if you're not going to do it now, it's going to get harder and harder to do it later because his value will continue to go down. That brings us to the rapid fire stories. The Mets have designated right-handed pitcher Dennis Santana for assignment and have placed Steven Nagosic on the 15-day IL due to an elbow bone bruise after being drilled in the arm by a comebacker Friday night against Oakland. The Mets have selected the contract of right-handed pitcher Jimmy Yacobonis from AAA Syracuse. The 31-year-old reliever signed with the Mets on a minor league deal this offseason. Tommy Hunter and Dylan Bundy have been added to the AAA Syracuse roster. Hunter begins his rehab assignment after being placed on the IL with back spasms. Bundy made his first start in AAA yesterday, surrendering 9 runs in 4.1 innings pitched. Earlier this week, Mets number 21 overall prospect Stanley Consuegra hit a home run that was 115.1 miles an hour off the bat, which breaks the record for the hardest hit in single-A baseball history. Consuegra is 22 years old and is off to a raging start in High A Brooklyn with a 1.109 OPS in 38 plate appearances. The Mets have claimed right-handed pitcher Seth Ellich from the Braves. Ellich is 26 years old and has pitched 23.1 major league innings with the Cardinals from 2020 to 2021. Mets star closer Edwin Diaz gave us an update on his rehab and recovery from knee surgery a few days ago. Diaz said that if everything goes well, I think I will be back quicker than 8 months. I also might throw this year. The 29-year-old closer suffered a torn patellar tendon in his right knee during Team Puerto Rico's winning celebration in this year's WBC in March. Parting words for episode 15, the Guillermo Heredia episode.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, it definitely was a bit of an interesting one again. Like, even though they finally got their first sweep of the season, we're talking so negatively about them. Just because the level of competition they're playing, we know they're capable of more. There's some adjustments that need to be made. I mean, we'll see what happens against the Dodgers. They played well against the Padres, so maybe they'll surprise us. I mean, that's what the Mets are, full of surprises.
So, a week ahead, continuing that California trip, and can't wait to come on here on Sunday when Darren Ruff hits the Major League record, goes 5 for 5 homers, and 27 RBIs combined in the series. So, can't wait for that, but the Richard Hidalgo video, and then on a banger.
Pete Alonso, you are the greatest ever. That's it. I mean, at this point, he's just carrying us on his back. Hopefully, we can just get some production whatsoever. But God, this lineup, I have a lot of concerns about it. Hopefully, we can see Brett Baty be Brett Baty and start off his Rookie of the Year campaign. He hits the ball hard. This team doesn't, so it's an improvement. Huge series up against the Dodgers. Hopefully, that we can. I'm hoping for 2 out of 3. Let's go Mets. We'll see you guys next week. Peace out.